So here's the stencil that we're going to be using, and the inks that I use for males, I don't like to go too pink. I think women can go a little bit pinker, but with the male nipple I like to go a little bit more browner in most cases. So classical from Ever After, absolutely loving this shade, and it looks fairly nice warm brown in the bottle and you can dilute that a little bit. This is fantastic shade as well for perhaps the inner or even a little bit of the outer. Sometimes I'll have quite a few colours on my tray when I'm tattooing, and I might try one in the skin and think, I'm gonna change to another one. So it's good to have options. So Incarnation is another go-to for me. Shade, loving Brooklyn Brownstones, very stable colour, world famous is a renowned ink. And then, now don't yell at me because I said not pink, but you do need a little bit of brightness for the inner. So I'll always put a drop for the inner part, and the inner part is the nipple and the outer part is the areola. This is my palette that I have created for today. So it's actually hard to see there. If I bring it up, the shadow, which is on this side, is a little bit darker. And that is basically my classical, which I refer to, if you see my first video, as my base colour. I always just have one colour and then I add other colours in there to keep nice tones. So I do classical and then I've put in a drop of my brown, and that's created my shade right there. I also do classical, that's it poured out without any mixer in, and that's going to be for my main part of the areola. I've put classical in here, and then I've added the drop of Pink Floyd, and then this last one is a combination of these two, which I may or may not use. So this is my machine. It is a masked wireless machine, and remember, a slow speed is shading and a fast speed is lining. So my slowest speed on the machine is 5, and it goes all the way up to 8. I will probably line at around a 6.7, and then when I shade I'll actually turn that down a little bit. Now I'm just going to start off with the lightest colour that I have, which is my base colour here, because in real life, what if you make a mistake? It's better to start off with the light just while you're marking out. So I always visualise circles like a clock. This is 12 o'clock and 1/2 past, so I always start my lining round the 1/4 past or the 1/2 past. And that's because if I want this to look like it's popping out, I need my highlight to come from the top, from here. And if I start here, I'm going to just instantly fill that part up, and that's a mistake. So that's me lining the inner. Now just bear in mind that the latex, obviously, they try and make it as good as skin and as close to skin as possible, but it's never going to be like the real thing. So we'll see how it goes on the latex. Sometimes it catches really well and sometimes it takes a little bit longer, so we'll see. This is the Magnum needle, 7 Magnum needle. I've been practicing today, guys. I always have a box of practice needles, so that's why they're a little bit inky to begin with. So I'm just going to go into my base colour here, needles out a little bit so I can see. Now I've seen people doing the pointillism all the way around the edge, and great technique, but for me I want to be quicker, and I find that if I just brush I actually get the little pixels anyway. Now circles are pretty awkward, so you can move yourself around. See how I'm repositioning? And you can do this on the client as well. But essentially you want to just draw out your line with the Magnum, and the softer the better. It's okay if it becomes a little bit skew width. I mean, that's what a nipple is. It's not meant to be perfect, otherwise it doesn't look right. Now when you're cleaning, just clean through a section. Don't just wipe through the whole thing. You want to just clean through a section to make sure, yep, I'm actually getting the ink in there, because otherwise you'll wipe it away before, and then you lose your stencil markings. So this is exactly what you would want to see on the skin as well. a stronger line in the center and a very soft, misty line on the outer. So that's always what I'm striving for with my stencil. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put my shade in, and shade is always laid down first, and by shade I mean the darker color. So you don't want to start with your highlight. Once you've done your lining, you want to start with your shade. So shading speed goes down, and shade is my darkest color, so it's going to be this one. We'll load that up in there. And what I want to do is just lightly go along this line here, and then start to create a little bit of a cast shadow along the base. So swooping down, pointillism is good. Like when you're dealing with the male nipple, it's so tiny in there that you can't really be, you know, doing too many big movements. Otherwise, you're just going to close that inner part up too much. So I'm just going to keep working. Now I'm not going to be adding any lumps or bumps on this one. I will show you guys how to do it, but I'm just going to keep it simple. And all you want to do is create a nice shadow sphere along your nipple, and then a bit of your cast off shadow along the base there. Lightly. Next, we are going to fill in the inner part. Now be careful you don't just close up the nipple, because if you do that, so by inner, that's the brighter colour that we're going to pick. I'm on my 5 round shader, guys. It's okay for those colours to start getting blended, it's nice, but you do not want to close that inner part up. Just leave it. Barely been on the skin for a few minutes and we'll already have created that nice inner part. Now what I'm going to do is flick to my magnum needle, and my shade goes down, my shade speed, sorry. So I'm on the 5.4. The colour for the areola is my base colour, which is my lightest colour. Hold it in there and suck it up. Start at o'clock. Circle movements. And start thinking of it like a, you know, like think of it in sections like a pizza. You just want to concentrate on one section before you move on to the next. And it's okay for you to go into that shading that you created a little bit. So things to note when doing top surgery: it's not a rounded shape like the female nipple. Try and stick to more brown tones if possible. Obviously, if you have a fair, really fair skinned guy or a redhead, pinker nipple is quite natural, but they will always never want that really pink looking nipple. The inner part is always teeny tiny, always so small. I don't usually numb when I do a top surgery client. It's such a small tattoo. You know, obviously with the breast cancer, they don't feel it. So I'm working my pie around and I'm edging towards that top area, but leaving it open. Now when I get to this part here, I leave it open and I'll just dust a little bit on the top because I don't want, sorry guys, I don't normally tattoo with all these tripods here. So what I'll do is I'll tattoo around, and you see I'll just sort of start closing that in. Here we go, back to the main colour. Close to the nipple and then skim along the top. Wipe. Closing it in, but I'm leaving so start to build up the colour and just see where it needs it, like little areas. Don't just keep going over the same bit. Now what I'm going to do is give it a good clean so I can see what I've got left to do. And then once I've done that, I'm going to start closing in this part at the top. So I'm still on this light colour here, and I'm just going to carefully, so lightly, go over there, because you don't just want an empty hole, but you also don't want to close it in as well. You gotta work it, but work it lightly, because they will heal. It'll heal too white otherwise, and it won't look good. Okay, that's how my top nipple's looking at the moment, and in comparison to a female nipple, I'll pull another one of my latexes in after this so that you can see. Usually at this stage it's about finishing up. I've got quite a nice shadow line under there. I wouldn't put any more in on the top, but I might be inclined to do a little bit of highlight, and if you wanted to be really fussy, you could redo your shading lines as well a little bit. So high speed into the shadow. And you can just make these pop a little bit more. See that? Just make it pop just a little bit. Let's look at it in comparison to the female nipple. A lot of size difference, okay? So the inner part and the actual shape around the edge is totally different. Let me give this a good clean up. Okay, there we are guys. I cleaned that up for you because I wanted to show you the difference between the two. And that's actually probably a very realistic size difference as well. That is actually probably the exact comparison that you would have between how you would want to scale a female nipple compared to a male nipple. Always making this part very, very small and a little bit more oblong shape female shape even. Female is round and a bigger nipple on the inner. I'll show you a few more of these videos, and I'll also be focusing on the techniques that I use for necrosis and when people have a breast lift and we need to correct the nipple. Also in natural cases where people need to enlarge the size of their areola, or they find that their areolas are too light. That's a lot of the work that I do as well. So I'll continue filming these so that you can see everything that I do for nipples that I've adopted through trial and error over the last decade. Thank you.